you can view Joe Burrow as possibly the best quarterback in this division. Maybe not right now, but possibly by the end of the season. I think you're being fair if you look at the quarterback situation in Cincinnati and you feel like it's a little bit more favorable than the one in Pittsburgh. Where do you side here? Do you side with the Steelers and the history of their coach and their ability to get after the quarterback and the quarterback's Hall of Fame pedigree? Or do you side with Cincinnati and go, you know what, the upside for their quarterback is so much higher, it's going to supersede everything that's unproven about that franchise.
Of course, we're going to talk some NFL now with our good friend Mo Egger, ESPN 1530 Cincinnati, and some Reds too, if we can get Mo on the screen. How you doing, Mo?
Oh, Rod, I'm doing great. How are you?
100%, my good friend. I understand, or it looks like, following your social media, you've had a wonderful summer down there in Ohio. Am I right?
It's been awesome. Yeah, the weather has been great. It's really hot right now. The Reds, though, are in the thick of a pennant race, which is a lot of fun. So that's kind of been the key to the whole thing. Led by Canada's finest athlete, Joey Votto.
Yeah. Only the second Canadian to hit that plateau in hits. How big a deal, Toronto kid, by the way, how big a deal is Joey Votto in Reds lore, would you say?
Well, he's one of their best players ever, and understand this is a franchise. Chances are you and most of your audience knows, Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Barry Larkin, Tony Perez, all those great players from those iconic teams of the 70s. This is not a franchise shy on greats, but Joey Votto's in the conversation. He is their best homegrown product since Barry Larkin, maybe even including Barry Larkin. But I think the thing that's been fun about him this year is, if you go back 2018, 19, and 20, we had gone through a decline phase with Joey Votto. He's going to turn 38 years old here in a couple of weeks, and so that's kind of to be expected. But we spent a lot of time this offseason wondering, for a guy who's got 3 more years on his current contract, what kind of player are we going to be talking about here? Are the skills going to continue to erode? And let's face it, he's a guy making $25 million per year. He's got a contract that's almost immovable. Are they stuck with a past its prime Joey Votto? And what we've seen is he's altered his approach at the plate. He's being more aggressive. He's swinging for the fences. That approach has worked. He's put together a resurgent season. I think he has won over some holdovers who used to not really like his approach. I think he has solidified his Hall of Fame case. But the really cool part is he's doing it in the context of what's been a good Red season, because some of his best years were wasted on 90 lost teams, and that's not been the case this year.
Darren Moose DuPont has joined the bunker for this segment because he wants to get in on the NFL talk. So we where do you want to start, Mo? The most recent game, a 17-13 loss to Washington. And you're looking at me like you're surprised. I don't know. But you're just enjoying the chat.
No.
That's right.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure my hat's on straight. I got to make sure I look the part. I want to be invited back.
Oh, well, you are invited back, and I love the fact that we've made such great friends. After your producer found you, yeah, let's move on. The Bengals, what's the outlook, Mo? Really?
I think this team has a chance to be okay. And let's face it, okay is a substantial improvement from awful, which is what they have been for the last couple of years. They've made a number of changes on defense. The offensive line is a huge question mark. I think they have a chance to have a really good trio of wide receivers. But let's be honest, this team this year is going to go as far as Joe Burrow can take them. And the good news is physically, he's fine. As you and I talk right now on Monday afternoon, we don't know if he's going to play their last preseason game on Sunday. I tend to think that there's a decent chance that he gets out there for at least a series, but physically he's fine. Early in camp, he acknowledged he was going through some mental things, just coming back from the injury that he said he had to get through. It feels like he's gotten past those. At least he has said that he has gotten past all of that. And so if he's on the field for 17 games and he makes a significant leap in year 2, this team's going to be pretty competitive. If he's injured or if he doesn't progress the way they hope, then this team could be in trouble. I am, though, really excited about what Joe Burrow can do, especially given the wide receivers that he has. And I think so far here during the preseason, for the most part, you have to be pretty encouraged by the way the offensive line has performed. I think they're going to be fine at the tackle positions. And On defense, you're going to see a lot of guys this year. If you really haven't followed the Bengals closely, that when you watch them, you go, wait a minute, that guy's on the Bengals now, or oh, that dude is still in the NFL. I don't know what all that is going to add up to once the real games start, but the defense so far here in the preseason, I think, has shown some pretty encouraging signs.
That's why we've got you on, Mo, is as our Bengals insider, because around here, it's a lot of Vikings, Packers, Cowboys, and then sprinkled everybody else. But there aren't a ton of Bengals fans, to be honest with you. And I want to get your take on the way NFL head coaches are approaching this year with regards to playing their quarterbacks. Dak Prescott's been hurt in Dallas with my Cowboys. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to see the field at all in Green Bay. In New England, they're trying to decide who's their number one. Like, you guys know who your number one's going to be. How have the Bengals handled playing time here in the preseason for their vets?
I think that's going to be something that's interesting to follow as we move forward, because the preseason is now shorter than it used to be, right? Where typically the third game was the, quote, dress rehearsal, and then the fourth game, you didn't play anybody. Well, we don't have that fourth game anymore. So I think moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how teams handle such a thing. From a Bengals perspective, with the exception of Joe Burrow, all of the main guys have played. Now, understand something about this team. Aside from the right guard position, there really aren't a whole lot of jobs up for grabs. The team, the roster, for the most part, is pretty much set. Now, they've got to figure out some stuff, who's going to be the sixth wide receiver, who's going to be the punt returner, who's going to occupy backup roles. But most of that stuff for this team has been settled. They also don't have a lot of guys who are long in the tooth. They don't have many guys who are in their 8th, 9th, or 10th seasons in the league where you know what they are, and all you're trying to do is get them to week one. Their best players, in many respects, are still in their rookie contracts. Many of them are in at least what are supposed to be the primes of their careers. And so, if you've got a team that's heavy on veterans, we saw the Bengals back when they had guys like Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap and Andy Dalton and A.J. Green, where it might have made less sense to play any of those guys in the preseason. They have a lot of guys who are still pretty early in their NFL careers who are important to this team, and they have a lot of guys, Joe Mixon would be on this list, players who are coming off injuries. I think it'll be interesting to see how Zach Taylor's approach evolves, because remember, he was with the L.A. Rams. Sean McVay, the year they went to the Super Bowl, he didn't play anybody of consequence in the preseason, certainly on offense. He didn't play anybody. I tend to think that moving forward, you're going to see more of a philosophy in line with that as the Bengals get older, hopefully as the Bengals get more established. But right now, there just aren't enough completely established players or, old school, old veteran players that you're going to sit out many of the main guys. Again, the question for Sunday when they play Miami is, do they play Joe Burrow? Joe has said he wants to play in the preseason. I don't think the Bengals want him to play in the preseason as a general rule, but he is coming off an injury. He has said he would like to get some snaps. He'd like to, just face a live defense and escape from the pocket and maybe even get hit, although I don't even want to think about that. And so to me, you have to go to Joe Burrow and say, do you want to play? If the answer is yes, okay, do you need to play in order to be where we want you on September the 12th when they start the season? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then I would play him, and I think the Bengals will as well. I think if he comes to them and says, I'm good, I don't need to go out there, I would tend to think that they would keep him on the bench. My guess is he is going to want to be out there. He's going to say it will be beneficial for him to be out there, and so on Sunday when they play Miami, he'll play for at least a short while.
Hey, Mo, where are we at on Jamar Chase right now? Because I know the expectations are through the roof, right? We're all in love with that 2019 LSU season, him and Joe Burrow, but preseason hasn't gone that well. Where are we at right now on the receiver?
It's not had a good camp and not had a good preseason, I think, more than not having a good camp. If for anybody who saw the game on Friday night, you saw a guy who on 3 consecutive drives dropped passes. And that's been kind of a theme here. Early in camp, by all accounts, he was struggling to get open. And again, he didn't play college football last year, so you could understand there being some rust. That improved, but then he was having a hard time hanging onto the football, and that came to the forefront on Friday night against Washington. Is that a long-term concern? My guess is no. But for a team that's got to hit the ground running, because the easier portion of their schedule is early in the season, I think you're being fair if you're wondering, how huge is his role going to be in the offense if he can't hang on to the ball? Is there a lack of confidence in him? I tend to think between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the answer is going to be no, because those two played with each other at LSU and they have such a good relationship. But yeah, look, I've seen how drops can really impact a rookie wide receiver's season. Saw it with John Ross. I think the Bengals coaching staff is going to have a pretty long leash when it comes to Jamar Chase. But if you're judging what you're seeing and you're trying to apply that to week one, maybe not his entire career, if you're judging what you're watching, which on Friday was 3 drops over 3 straight series, and you're trying to figure out how that's going to impact the team when the season begins in a couple of weeks, I think you're being fair if you're a little uneasy about his role in the offense. The talent is there. He has said and done all the right things. I think they are still completely on board with the idea that he, over the course of his career, is going to give this team a lot of explosiveness, but you can't give a team those things if you can't hang on to the ball. And so that's got to be rectified before any of that other stuff can happen.
From Nelson on Facebook, he says, Thursday night, September 30th, Bengals versus Jaguars. Mark it down on the calendar. The loser gets first overall pick. Yeesh. That's not a real rosy outlook going into the season for the Jags nor Bengals. But can you talk about that division, Mo, that the Bengals are in? Like, who are they going to get ahead of in that division to make some hay this year?
Well, they're not as good as Cleveland or Baltimore. I think most would agree with that. I think the team they have a chance to leapfrog is Pittsburgh. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably still going to be very good defensively. They have a head coach who's never had a losing season. I guess the question for me is, can Ben Roethlisberger get through 17 games? And by the end of the year, what kind of quarterback are we talking about? Because watching him at the end of the season, which included a loss to the Bengals on Monday Night Football, that was painful. He was a shell of himself. That doesn't mean that he can't still have productive games and big moments, but I don't know if I'm a Pittsburgh fan that I trust the quarterback situation right now to get me through a full season in this division. So I think the Bengals and Steelers are going to fight it out for third place. I think you're being fair if from a Cincinnati perspective you say, you know what, I can't exactly put my money, if you will, on a team that's won 6 games over 2 seasons, that has an unproven head coach and all of the questions that this team has on defense and on the offensive line. I also think you can view Joe Burrow as possibly the best quarterback in this division. Maybe not right now, but possibly by the end of the season. I think you're being fair if you look at the quarterback situation in Cincinnati and you feel like it's a little bit more favorable than the one in Pittsburgh. Where do you side here? Do you side with the Steelers and the history of their coach and their ability to get after the quarterback and the quarterback's Hall of Fame pedigree? Or do you side with Cincinnati and go, you know what, the upside for their quarterback is so much higher, it's going to supersede everything that's unproven about that franchise. Bengals fans, myself included, tend to think Cincinnati does have a better chance to beat Pittsburgh, but I do understand the point of view with this team. I don't know who the difference makers are going to be on defense. I don't know that you can fully trust this offensive line. We don't know if Zach Taylor is a good coach. And let's face it, they've won 6 games over 2 seasons. And so if you look at the Bengals and go, I need to see some progress before I really believe this team is going to pull itself out of the bottom of the NFL, I totally understand that.
Wonderful analysis. And I notice, I spy with my little eye.
Nobody has ever said that about anything that's come out of my mouth.
Well, today, write it down. Monday, August 23rd. I noticed the New York Knickerbockers lid that you have on, Mo. How many days out of the week do you wear New York Knicks swag?
So often. I'm a diehard, and I mean, you talk about a lousy hand in life that I was dealt. I grew up a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and I grew up a New York Knicks fan. Now, the Knicks, went to the finals when I was a kid and all that stuff. But I am one of 2 documented New York Knicks fans here in the greater Cincinnati area. So pretty frequently, because and Rod, you can maybe identify with this. The great thing about rooting for we don't have an NBA team here. The great thing about rooting for the Knicks is I don't have to have a take. I don't have to have I can just watch the damn games and spout off about them, and then the PR director of the team's not going to get mad at me, which is not as much the case with the Reds and Bengals.
I think of you often and the cauldron that you're likely in as the talk show host in that town, analyzing those teams. And yes, it's nice to just be a fan. I just thought you might have been from the New York area originally, and that's why you're a Knicks fan, but you're not, hey?
No, we'll see. This is more information than you or your audience want to know about me. I was born in northern Kentucky, right across the river here. And then when I was a kid, we moved to New Jersey for a while, and then we moved back. And so my dad was a Reds fan, so I was a Reds fan. And my dad was a Bengals fan, so I was a Bengals fan. And my dad was a University of Kentucky basketball fan. And because every son has to spite their father somehow, I became a University of Cincinnati basketball fan. But he took me to a Knicks game when I was 10 years old, and I was hooked. And then we moved back, and I'm like, there's no NBA team here. So, and I wasn't going to root for the Pacers, who are like 100 miles away. So I stuck with the Knicks. And I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life, and that might be at the very, very top of the list.
You might want to rethink that one, Mo. There's still time.
By the way, the last time I was on your show, I came on, I think it was in April or May, and I was in my home office, and I had my backdrop. Now it looks like I'm in a prison.
Yes, it does.
It looks like somebody's about to serve like bread and water through it. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, it's
this is.
It's a mainstream radio station, right? Mainstream media radio station?
So I am in a back studio. They're redoing our studios. So everything's like, I'm surprised I'm not wearing a hard hat. This is the place where there was the least amount of junk in the background. But I mean, there are hostage videos that are more aesthetically pleasing than this. So here we are.
When do you get your hour in the yard, Mo?
We're all going to go kick a hacky sack around for an hour before we have to report to the mess hall. Yeah.
All right. Mo, keep in touch, my man. Keep on keeping on. Love having you on. Thanks, bud.
All right, Rod, I enjoyed being with you. Thanks for having me.
As always, Mo Egger from ESPN 1530 Cincinnati. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.